Hello everyone, my name is SolarB913. I've actually created a custom game mode experience for Battlefield 6 specifically. This is the code, or the initial part of the code that has been generated. And I've actually created this video as a means of teaching people how to understand the code and make the necessary modifications so they can create their own user experience and share that amongst other people within the Battlefield community. So let's dive right in. So starting with this variable right here, this is the starting score for both sides. So for the enemy and for the friendly side, this is your starting point. So at 800. Once the tickets reach 0, the other team will win and vice versa. This right here, if we go down to on game mode started, we have the set game mode time initiate basically, and we're initiating at 1500 seconds, translates to 25 minutes. So each session or each game mode is going to be 25 minutes long, and you can always change that, of course. That's one modification. If we go down here, to the real meat and potatoes of the code itself. Hang on, go all the way down. Hang on. Let's see here. Okay, so right here, right below the AI ready for attack, we have a block of code which says reset variable on deploy. So this is all the preliminary work that occurs before you when you deploy onto the game itself or the map itself. All these variables will be set. Now, once all the variables are set and you're actually on the map, we have something called fire instability new. So this actually randomizes the recoil feedback on the weapon itself. So it helps to increase dispersion a little bit. It also helps to increase the recoil. And so basically the idea behind this block of code is to have the player switch over or try to control their rate of fire. Basically, you want to go to single shot when you're firing your weapon at an enemy. Single shot is the best method to get pinpoint accuracy on an enemy soldier. And these can be modified, of course. So this is the range of the recoil dispersion system, and you can change the random reel within this range. So I did a random reel simply because it actually makes each gun more interesting. So there's more of a learning curve behind it when you're shooting your weapon. Makes it more unpredictable. Let's see. So, and there's also something called, basically it's called a lock camera system for firing your weapon. So when you fire your weapon, for example, it can get locked at a certain point in time due to the feedback from the recoil system. And these can be modified, of course, too. So the lower it is, the less camera lock duration as you're firing your weapon in automatic firing mode, basically. Sometimes what happens is that you have to wait a little bit of time for that locking system to disengage, and that's only happens when you're firing your weapon. As soon as you stop firing your weapon, that system becomes disengaged, and you can actually freely control the camera system as you would in any normal game mode. Just something to point out. Sometimes what happens is that the camera gets locked in this particular axis, and so this code right here helps for the most part to reset the camera back to its original state, so it's no longer locked in a particular axis, whether it be the y-axis or the x-axis. So you can change these times, of course. I recommend not doing that, but you can, of course. Now we have our own bleed out system. This block of code right here deals with the bleed out system for a character. So say if your character's health is set or gets reduced to 40 or less than 40, what happens is that your character will start to bleed out. And your position and your velocity will determine how fast that bleed out process occurs. So for instance, if you're going prone, for example, you can actually negate the whole bleeding process. If you're prone and you're moving, for example, you'll incur 0.25 damage. If you're in a vehicle, you'll be 0.25. If you are sprinting, you'll reach a higher bleed out of 3. So that's basically 3 damage points. If your linear velocity is this 0.09 in either the z component and you're not sprinting, then you'll incur a damage of 1. And if you are, for example, if your linear velocity is 0, in essence, and you're standing or in crouch mode, for example, you will incur a damage of 0.5. And this, of course, will affect your aim stability, basically. So it'll increase the dispersion of the weapon. So it'll be based on a 0.12, for instance. And this damage will occur every 4 seconds. So this is the wait time. Every 4 seconds, when you're in that bleed out state, a damage will occur in that player, which will affect their aim, of course. In addition to this, I've also included a suppression system. And the suppression system, especially if there's an explosion that goes off near the player, it damages the player. They have to wait 5 seconds before they can even utilize ADS, which is aimed on the sights. And if, say, you have a fall, for example, and you hit the ground and you incur damage that way, well, you will have to wait 1 second before you can activate ADS. If it's melee attacking server damage, it's 0.2. If it's a headshot, basically from any weapon, it's a 4-second wait time before ADS can be taken effect. And if you're using LMGs, like the LMG L110, LMG M60, and the LMG M240 light machine gun, you'll have to wait 3 seconds for any of those 3 before you can activate ADS. Now, if it's not a headshot and it's a primary weapons involved, then you have to wait 1.25 seconds. However, when it involves fire, there are certain restrictions that are enabled. Reload, for example, cycle primary, and the ability to select primary are restricted when the player is on fire. Usually the wait is 3 seconds for that. And if it's any other type of damage that the player suffers on the battlefield, they have to wait 0.5 seconds. Same thing here as well. And then once that happens, everything gets reset, of course. Zoom reload at the end. And of course, all of these values here can be modified. You can change them to anything you want, basically, which is up to you. So changing the wait time can be preferable for certain people, and they can share that experience with others, of course. Before I go any further, another thing you can actually do, say if you just want the suppression system for your game mode, you can actually, just by clicking on the block of code just below it, you can click and drag basically click and drag to the right to remove the code, so it's no longer part of the gray backbone. This gray backbone here determines the whether or not the code itself is active. If it's attached to the gray backbone itself, it'll become active. If you decide to detach it, well, it no longer is part of the game mode. And you can actually do the same thing with a slight modification. So that means what you can do is you have to hold down the control button, click on the block of code, and drag it to the right. And you would have to do it for each of these specifically. Everything above it, do the same to get rid of it, with the exception of not removing this part here. Keep this block of code, because this does all the preliminary work with the variables in the background. So before you even deploy, or I should say when you deploy, this will actually take effect, and it's necessary for everything else to work.